I spent Mother's Day completely alone while my children went off to a friend's party. This was even after I had confirmed with them just the day before if they were coming for lunch, and they had said yes. I cried the entire afternoon in that empty living room. But that very same night, they came back asking for money to pay their bills. By then, however, I had already bought my one-way ticket, and that changed everything. The table had been set since 11 in the morning. Clean tablecloths, the good plates that I only used on special occasions, the cloth napkins I had ironed the night before. In the center, a modest flower arrangement I had bought with the last few dollars remaining from my Social Security check. The chicken was already in the oven. The potatoes were peeled. The salad was prepared. Everything was ready for the Mother's Day lunch. I had confirmed with them the day before. I called Sarah first. She answered in a rush, as always, with that tone of voice she used when she was doing other things while talking to me. I asked her if she was coming tomorrow. She said yes. "Of course, Mom. We'll be there." Then I called Jason. He was more direct. "Yeah, Mom, we're going. Don't worry." He hung up quickly. I felt reassured. I thought this time would be different. I thought this time they would remember. I sat on the sofa in the living room and waited. I looked at the clock at 12. Nothing. At 12:30, I started to feel that knot in my stomach that I already knew so well. At 1 o'clock sharp, the chicken was ready. I took it out of the oven. The smell filled the empty house. I set the table. I sat down. I waited a little longer. At 2 in the afternoon, I dialed Sarah's number. She didn't answer. I tried Jason. Voicemail. I tried again. Nothing. The chicken was getting cold. The potatoes too. I got up and walked to the window. The street was quiet. A few families walked by, laughing. Mothers with their children. Flowers in their hands. Hugs. I went back to the table. I sat alone in front of all those empty plates. Then I understood. They weren't coming. Again. Like last year. Like my birthday. Like Christmas. They always had an excuse. There was always something more important than me. I sat there for I don't know how long. The clock struck 3, then 4, 5. The afternoon light began to change. The shadows grew longer in the living room. Everything was so silent I could hear my own breathing. I could hear the sound of my heart breaking once more. At 6 in the evening, I got up. I put the food in the refrigerator. No one was going to eat it. I cleared the plates. I folded the tablecloths. I put away the napkins. I threw the flowers in the trash. They were already wilted anyway, like me. I sat on the living room sofa, and that was when the tears began to fall. They weren't noisy tears. They weren't dramatic sobs. They were silent tears, the kind that hurt more because they come from deep inside. From the place where you keep all the disappointments you don't want to admit. From the place where you know the truth, but prefer to pretend it doesn't exist. I cried thinking about all the Mother's Days I had spent alone. I cried thinking about all the times they had promised to come and didn't. I cried thinking that I had given my whole life for them, and they couldn't even give me one afternoon. I am 70 years old. 70 years of life. 48 years being a mother. And that day, in that empty living room, I realized something I had been denying for a long time. My children didn't love me, or maybe they did love me, but not enough. Not enough to remember. Not enough to be present. Not enough to care. Night fell, and I was still there. Motionless, without turning on the lights. Just me and the darkness and that weight in my chest that I no longer knew how to remove. I thought about calling them again. I thought about sending them a text. I thought about telling them how I felt. But I didn't, because I knew they would say the usual things. Sorry, Mom. Things got complicated. Next time. Always the next time that never arrived. It was almost 10 at night when I heard the car park outside. I recognized the sound of the engine. It was Jason's. Then I heard voices, laughter, footsteps in the front yard, the key in the lock, the door opening. They turned on the living room light and saw me there, sitting in the dark, with swollen eyes, with a broken soul. Sarah was the first to speak. "Hi, Mom. We thought we'd stop by to say hello." She was wearing an elegant dress, perfect makeup. She smelled of expensive perfume and alcohol. Jason entered behind her. He was also dressed up. New shirt, shiny shoes. He looked at me with that casual smile he used when he wanted something. "Hey, Ma. How was your day?" I didn't answer. I couldn't. I had a lump in my throat that wouldn't let me speak. I looked at them and saw everything. I saw the truth I had been avoiding. They had been at a party. They had had fun. They had been drinking. They had laughed. While I cried alone in this empty room, Sarah sat in the armchair across from me. Jason remained standing. There was an uncomfortable silence. Then Sarah took out her phone. She looked at the screen. She looked back at me. "Mom, we need to talk about something important." Jason came closer. He sat on the arm of the sofa. "Yeah, Ma. See, we have a problem. We need you to help us." Sarah nodded. "It's urgent, Mom. It's the bills for the month." Everything piled up. Jason's rent, my credit card. "It's like $3,000. We need you to lend it to us." I looked at both of them. There they were, my children. The children for whom I had worked until I broke my back. The children for whom I had given up everything. The children who didn't come to lunch with me on Mother's Day. But they came that very same night to ask me for money. Something broke inside me in that moment. Something that was never going to be put back together. I looked at them and thought about the envelope I had kept in my bedroom, the envelope with the bus ticket, the one-way ticket, only one way, no return. They didn't know it yet. They didn't know that I had already made a decision. They didn't know that this was going to be the last time they saw me like this. Quiet, submissive, available. They didn't know that everything was about to change. And while they kept talking about their problems, their debts, their needs, I only thought about one thing. My name is Eleanor Vance. I am 70 years old, and I already bought my one-way ticket. It wasn't always like this. There was a time when my children hugged me when they got home from school. A time when Sarah ran toward me screaming, "Mommy," and hung from my neck. A time when Jason looked for me to tell me everything he had learned that day. There was a time when I was important to them. We were poor, but we were happy, or at least I thought we were happy. We lived in a small house on the edge of the city. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom. A kitchen where the 4 of us barely fit. My husband, Arthur, worked in construction. I cleaned houses. Between the 2 of us, we scraped together enough to eat and pay the rent. Nothing was left over, but nothing was lacking either. The children were small. Sarah was 6. Jason was 4. They ran through the house barefoot. They played with rocks and sticks because we didn't have money for toys. But they didn't care. They were children. They were innocent. They didn't know yet that we were poor. They didn't know yet that other families had more. I bathed them every night in that old tub we had. I washed their hair with care. I cut their nails. I put the clean clothes on them that I had washed by hand that afternoon. I tucked them into their beds and told them stories until they fell asleep. They were my whole life. My reason for waking up every morning. Arthur was a good man, quiet, hard-working. He didn't talk much, but he loved me in his own way. He would come home tired from work. He would sit at the table. He would eat what I had prepared. Sometimes he would look at me and say, "Thanks, Eleanor. That was enough for me. I didn't need more." But everything changed when Arthur died. It was an accident at the job site. A beam fell wrong. He didn't suffer, they told me. It was fast, as if that made it hurt less, as if the speed of death were a consolation. He was 42 years old. I was 38. Sarah was 12. Jason was 10. Suddenly, I was alone with 2 children, without a steady job, without savings, with nothing more than my hands and my will to keep going. The survivor benefits they gave me for Arthur's death were a pittance, $150 a month. It wasn't even enough for food. So I worked. I worked like I had never worked in my life. I cleaned 3 houses in the morning. I washed other people's clothes in the afternoon. I ironed at night. I slept 4 hours if I was lucky. I got up before dawn. I went to bed after midnight. My hands filled with calluses. My back started to hurt. My knees began to fail. But I didn't care. Because my children were okay. Because Sarah and Jason had food on the table. Because they could go to school. Because they had clean clothes. Because they had shoes. Because they had a mother who would give her life for them. And I was willing to give it. Sarah was the oldest. She was always more serious, more responsible. She helped me with Jason. She took care of him when I had to work late. She made him dinner. She helped him with homework. She was an adult child in the body of a girl. And I felt guilty for that. for stealing her childhood, for forcing her to grow up so fast. Jason was different. He was cheerful, a dreamer. He was always inventing things. He drew on any paper he found. He told me that when he grew up, he was going to be an artist, that he was going to be famous, that he was going to buy me a big house, that I was never going to have to work again. And I believed him, because mothers always believe their children. The years passed. They grew. The house felt smaller and smaller. Sarah started to complain. She said her friends had better things, better houses, better clothes, better lives. She looked at me with that silent reproach that hurt more than any word, as if it were my fault that we were poor, as if I weren't doing everything possible. Jason changed too. He stopped drawing. He stopped dreaming. He started hanging out with other guys. He came home late. He didn't tell me where he had been. When I asked him, he answered with monosyllables. He became distant, cold, like a stranger living in my house. But I kept working. I kept sacrificing, because that is what mothers do, because I thought someday they would understand, that someday they would be grateful, that someday they would say, "Thanks, Mom, for everything you did for us." When Sarah turned 18, she got a job at a store downtown. She started earning her own money. I thought she would help me. I thought now that she was working, I could rest a little. But no, Sarah kept every cent. She bought herself new clothes, new shoes, makeup, perfumes. She went out with her friends. And when I asked her to contribute something for the house, she looked at me as if I were asking for a kidney. Jason barely finished high school. He didn't want to keep studying. He said college wasn't for him, that he was going to get a job, that he was going to make money, that he didn't need more school. I didn't insist. I was tired of fighting. I was tired of everything. He got a job at a mechanic's shop. He earned little, but it was something. I thought he would stay with me, that he would help me with the expenses. But 6 months later, he told me he was moving out, that he had found an apartment with some friends, that he needed his space, that he was a man now, that he couldn't stay living with me forever. I stayed quiet. I didn't tell him that I felt abandoned. I didn't tell him that I was afraid of being alone. I didn't tell him anything. I just helped him pack his things. I gave him money for the first month's rent. Money I didn't have. Money I took from my meager savings. And I watched him leave without looking back. Sarah left 2 years later. She met a man. She fell in love. She got married. She didn't invite me to the wedding. Well, she did invite me. But it was an obligation invitation. One of those you send because you have to. I went to the wedding. I sat in a corner. No one talked to me. No one introduced me. No one made me feel important. I was just the mother of the bride, a detail, an obligation. Sarah's marriage lasted 3 years. Then she got divorced. She came back to my house crying, telling me the man had cheated on her, that he had treated her badly, that she needed a place to stay. I took her in. Of course I took her in. She was my daughter, but she didn't thank me. She stayed 6 months. She recovered. She met another man. And she left again without saying goodbye. Jason never married. He had girlfriends, many girlfriends, all temporary, all the same. He introduced them to me when he needed to impress them. Look, this is my mom. Poor thing. She lives alone, always so self-sacrificing. And they looked at me with pity, with that pity that makes you feel small, invisible, unnecessary. The years kept passing. I kept working. Even though I couldn't clean houses like before. Even though my back hurt so much, there were days I couldn't get out of bed. Even though my hands shook. Even though my knees wouldn't hold me. But they kept coming. Sarah and Jason. They kept coming when they needed something. Money, almost always. $200 for rent. $300 for a debt. $500 for an emergency. They never explained well. And I gave. I always gave. Even if I had to stop buying my medicine. Even if I had to eat less. Even if I had to turn off the heat in winter to save. Because they were my children. Because I loved them. Because I thought someday they would change. That someday they would mature. That someday they would realize everything I had done for them. But that day never came. And while I waited for that day, they kept taking. They kept asking. They kept forgetting about me. Until that Mother's Day. Until that day when I sat in the empty living room, crying, waiting, dying a little inside, and they arrived at night, smelling of a party, of fun, of a life I never had. And they asked me for $3,000 like someone asking for a glass of water. That was when something clicked in my head, when I understood that this was never going to change, that they were never going to change, that I could keep giving and giving until I dropped dead, and they would keep taking without thanking, without remembering, without loving. That night I didn't give them the money. I told them I didn't have it. Sarah got annoyed. She made that face she made when things didn't go her way. But Mom, you always have something put away. You always help us. It can't be that right now, of all times, you have nothing. Her voice had that accusatory tone, as if I owed her something, as if it were my obligation to solve their lives. Jason was more direct. Mom, seriously, we need that money. It's not a whim. These are real debts. If we don't pay, we're going to get in trouble. He looked at me, expecting me to cave. As I always caved. As I always ended up giving them what they asked for, even if I had to be left with nothing. But this time I didn't cave. I looked at them and told them no. That I didn't have that money. That I barely had enough to live. That my Social Security was $800 a month, and with that I had to pay lights, water, food, medicines. That I had nothing left over. That I couldn't help them this time. Sarah got up from the armchair. She exhaled with frustration. Unbelievable. Mom, just now when we really need you, you can't help us. Jason also stood up. Well, then we'll have to figure it out another way. Thanks anyway. His thanks sounded hollow, fake, like everything that came out of his mouth lately. They left without saying goodbye, without asking how I was, without noticing that I had cried all afternoon, without seeing the table I had set for them, not caring that it was Mother's Day and they had left me alone. They left and closed the door, and I stayed there again. In that empty living room, in that empty house, in that empty life, I stayed awake all night. I couldn't sleep. My head wouldn't stop spinning over everything. Over the years, over the sacrifices, over the times I had stopped eating so they could eat, over the times I had worked while sick to pay for their school, over the times I had given them even what I didn't have, and they didn't even remember. They didn't even thank me. To them, I was just an ATM, a place to go when they needed something, a resource, not a person, not their mother, just a source of money that was supposed to always be available. The next day, I got up early. I hadn't slept, but I got up anyway. I made myself a coffee. I sat in the kitchen, and I made a decision. I was going to investigate. I was going to know the truth. Because something didn't add up. Jason had a job. Sarah too. They both earned more than me. So why did they always need money? Where did everything they earned go? I opened my phone. I went on social media. Something I almost never did because I didn't understand well how those things worked. But Sarah had taught me once. She had shown me how to search for people, how to see their photos. I searched for Sarah's profile first, and there it was. Photos and more photos, Sarah in expensive restaurants, Sarah with new dresses, Sarah on trips to the beach, Sarah at parties, Sarah with drinks in her hand, Sarah smiling, Sarah living a life that, according to her, she couldn't afford. A life full of luxuries while she asked me for rent money. I kept scrolling down. More photos, more restaurants, more clothes, more trips, posts from a week ago, from 2 days ago, from yesterday, from last night. A photo of the party she went to instead of coming to lunch with me. She was with her friends, all made up, all in elegant dresses. The caption read, "Perfect day with my faves." Hearts, emojis, happiness, perfect day. While I cried alone in my house, while I waited for them to come, while I put away the food that no one was going to eat. Perfect day. I searched for Jason's profile, more of the same. Photos in bars, photos with friends, photos with new motorcycles, photos with brand name clothes, photos at concerts, photos at events. A full life, an expensive life, a life that didn't match someone who couldn't pay his bills. I stared at those photos for hours. I felt something strange in my chest. It wasn't just sadness. It was something deeper. It was the sensation of having been deceived, of having been used, of having been foolish for all these years. Then I saw something that froze my blood. A group chat. Sarah had posted a screenshot by mistake. Or maybe not by mistake. Maybe she didn't care who saw it. It was a group called Vance Siblings. It was just the two of them, Sarah and Jason. In the screenshot, part of a conversation could be read. Jason had written, "Did you ask the old lady yet?" Sarah replied, "Not yet, but I know how to work her. I'm going to tell her it's urgent. You know how she is. She always falls for it." Jason, "Ha ha ha, yeah, poor thing. But hey, that's what she had us for, right? So we can take care of her when she's old. Meanwhile, let her bankroll us a little more." I read that once, twice, 3 times. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. The old lady. Poor thing. Let her bankroll us a little more. That's how they talked about me. That's how they thought of me. Like a burden. Like a future obligation. Like someone to make fun of in the meantime. I closed the phone. My hands were shaking. I felt nauseous. I got up and went to the bathroom. I looked in the mirror. I saw a 70-year-old woman, tired, worn out, with deep wrinkles, with completely white hair, with sad eyes, with hands deformed from working so much. This was me, Eleanor Vance, the woman who had given her whole life for 2 children, who called her the old lady, the woman who had broken her back working so they could have everything she never had, the woman who kept giving them money while they mocked her in their private chats. I went back to my bedroom. I opened the drawer of my nightstand. I took out an old box where I kept important papers, documents, receipts, vouchers. I started reviewing everything. I mentally added up how much money I had given them in the last 5 years. $12,000. In 5 years, I had given them $12,000. Money I took from my Social Security. Money I saved by stopping buying things for myself. Money I borrowed and was still paying back. $12,000 that they spent on parties, on clothes, on trips, on whims, while they told me it was for emergencies, for urgent debts, for necessary things. They were lying to me. They had always lied to me, and I had always believed them. Because that is what foolish mothers do. Believe in their children, even though all the signs say they shouldn't. I put away the papers. I closed the box. I sat on the edge of my bed. And in that moment, I understood something fundamental. If I didn't change this, no one was going to change it. They were never going to wake up one day and decide to treat me better. They were never going to be grateful. They were never going to value. They were never going to love me like I loved them. I had 2 options. Continue like this until I died. Keep being the old lady who bankrolls them. Keep giving them everything until I was left with nothing. Until I died alone and forgotten in this house while they went on with their perfect lives posting happy photos on the internet. Or I could do something different. Something I had never done. Something that scared me just thinking about it. I could choose me. For the first time in 70 years, I could think about me. I could do something for me. I got up. I went to the living room. I turned on the old computer I had, the one Jason had given me years ago when it didn't work for him anymore. I went on the internet. I searched. Retirement homes near the sea. I don't know why I searched for that. Maybe because I always dreamed of seeing the sea, of living near the water, of listening to the waves, of feeling the breeze. Things I never did because I was always busy giving my life for others. Several results appeared. Quiet places, communities for seniors, small but dignified houses, affordable prices. Far from this city, far from this life, far from them. I wrote down some numbers, some names, some addresses. I turned off the computer. And there, sitting in the living room where I had cried the day before, I started to plan something I never thought I would do. I started to plan my escape, my freedom, my new life. A life where Eleanor Vance wasn't the old lady, where she wasn't the one who pays, where she wasn't the forgotten mother. A life where she could simply be Eleanor, a woman, a person, someone who matters. But first, I needed to know more. I needed to understand exactly how deep the deception was. I needed to see with my own eyes who my children really were. So I decided to do something I had never done. I decided to investigate them, follow them, watch them without them knowing. I called Maggie Sullivan, my old neighbor, the only person in this world who still treated me like a human being, I had helped her years ago when her husband died. I lent her money. I gave her food. I accompanied her in her pain, and she never forgot it. Unlike my own children, Maggie knew how to be grateful. Maggie answered on the second ring. "Eleanor, how nice to hear from you. How are you?" Her voice was warm, real. We talked for a while. I told her a little. Not everything. I couldn't tell her everything yet, but I asked her for a favor. I needed her to help me get information. I needed to know where my children went. What did they do? Who were they hanging out with? Maggie didn't ask why. She just said, "Count on me." We agreed to see each other the next day. That night, I slept a little better. Not because I was calm, but because for the first time in a long time, I felt I had a purpose, a plan, a direction. I was no longer just the woman who waited. Now I was the woman who acted. Maggie arrived at my house the next morning. She brought coffee and sweet bread. She sat with me at the kitchen table and listened to me. I told her everything. I showed her the screenshots I had saved. I showed her the receipts for the money I had given them. I showed her the photos on social media. Everything. Maggie listened in silence. When I finished, she just took my hand and said, "Eleanor, this has to end." And I knew she was right. This had to end. But not in just any way. It had to end the right way, in a way that gave me back my dignity. Maggie knew people. She had contacts. Her nephew worked at a law firm. She told me she could get me an appointment, that she could help me organize my things, my papers, my money, my life. I accepted. 3 days later, I was sitting in an office across from a young lawyer. His name was Michael Sterling. He was about 35. He was serious but kind. He offered me water. He asked me to tell him my situation. And I spoke. I spoke more than I had spoken in years. I told him about my children, about the money, about the lies, about how they treated me. I showed him everything I had gathered. He took notes. He asked questions, questions no one had ever asked me, questions about me, about what I wanted, about what I needed. Michael explained several things to me. He explained that I was not obligated to give money to my children, that they were adults responsible for their own lives, that I had the right to live peacefully, that I could do whatever I wanted with my money, with my house, with my time. He talked to me about wills, about bank accounts, about inheritances. He told me I could change everything, that I could protect the little I had, that I could ensure that when I died, my things went to whomever I decided, not necessarily to my children. That conversation opened my eyes. I had never thought about those things. I always assumed that everything I had belonged to them, that when I died, they would inherit, that was the natural order. But Michael made me understand that I could decide, that I was still alive, that I still had a voice, that I still had power. I asked him how much his services cost. He told me a price, $500 for all the paperwork. It was a lot of money for me, more than I had available. But Maggie had lent me that money. She told me to pay her back when I could, or not to pay her back ever, that the important thing was for me to be okay. I hired Michael that same day. He asked for documents, deeds, bank papers, statements. I told him I would bring him everything. We agreed to see each other the following week to start the process. I left that office feeling different, stronger, clearer, as if someone had turned on a light in a dark room where I had been living my whole life. Now I could see things as they were, not as I wanted them to be. That night I reviewed all my documents, the deed to the house, my old will, my bank accounts, my social security. Everything was in order, but nothing was how I wanted it. The old will said that everything was for Sarah and Jason in equal parts. The house, the money, everything, as if they deserved it, as if they had done something to earn it. I decided that was going to change, but not yet. First, I needed to observe more, understand more, see how far their lie went, how far their lack of respect went. I needed to be completely sure before making decisions I couldn't reverse. I started following them, discreetly, like an amateur detective. I knew where Jason worked. I knew where Sarah lived. I started passing by those places, to observe, to take mental notes. I saw Jason leave the mechanic's shop one Tuesday afternoon. He wasn't alone. He was with a young woman, very young, maybe 25. They got into a new car, a car I didn't know, an expensive car. They left together, laughing, holding hands. I followed them on the bus. They went to a restaurant downtown, one of those restaurants where dishes cost $50. I saw them go in. I saw them sit by the window. I saw them order wine. I saw how Jason showed her the menu, how he smiled at her, how he treated her as if she were someone special. My son, who told me he couldn't pay his rent, was spending $100 on a dinner. My son, who asked me for borrowed money, was in a new car. My son, who was supposedly broke, was living as if he were swimming in money. I stayed outside the restaurant. I waited. I don't know why I waited. Maybe because I needed to see more. I needed to confirm what I already knew. They came out 2 hours later, still laughing, still happy. They kissed on the street, got in the car, they left. I went back to my house on the last bus of the night. I arrived tired, sad, but also more sure, more convinced that what I was doing was correct. The next day, it was Sarah's turn. I knew she worked in an office at the mall. I went early. I sat on a bench outside her work. I waited. I saw her come out at lunchtime. She was with 2 friends, the same ones from the photos on social media. They went to a clothing store. I followed them. I went into the store behind them. I stood looking at racks while I listened to them talk. Sarah tried on a red dress. It cost $200. Her friends told her it looked beautiful on her, that she should buy it. She hesitated a moment. Then she said, "Yeah, I'll take it. I already paid my debts anyway. Now I can treat myself." She already paid the debts for which she asked me for $3,000 2 weeks ago, the debts that supposedly had her desperate. She had already paid them, and now she was buying a $200 dress like it was nothing. I left the store before them. I didn't want them to see me. I didn't want to confront them yet. It wasn't the moment yet. I went back home. I sat in my room. I took out an old notebook I had. I started writing down everything I had seen. The dates, the places, the expenses, the lies. I called Michael the next day. I told him what I had discovered. He listened to me. He told me that all that was useful, that it would help me make better decisions. He asked if I was sure about what I wanted to do. I told him yes, more sure than ever. We started the process. Michael prepared a new will, one where I decided who inherited what. He prepared documents to change the beneficiaries of my bank account. He prepared everything so that when I died, my children wouldn't receive anything automatically, or would receive the minimum, whatever I decided to give them. But we also talked about something else. We talked about what to do while I was alive. Michael suggested I open a new account, an account my children didn't know about, where I could keep my money, where they couldn't ask me because they wouldn't know it existed. I did exactly that. I opened an account at another bank. I transferred most of my Social Security to that new account. I left only the minimum in the old account. Enough so, it looked like I barely had enough to live, which was true. But now I had a little put away, a little that was only mine, a little that no one was going to take from me. I also started selling things, old things I had in the house, furniture I didn't use anymore, clothes that didn't fit me, books, dishes, things I had accumulated over 50 years of life. I sold them on the internet, with help from Maggie, who understood those things better than me. It wasn't a lot of money, $50 here, $100 there, but it was adding up. I saved every cent in my new account, my secret account, my escape fund. Because that was what I was planning, an escape, a way out, a way to disappear from this life that was killing me slowly. Every day that passed, I was more sure. I didn't want to continue like this anymore. I didn't want to be the mother who waits for crumbs of affection. I didn't want to be the old lady who bankrolls. I searched for bus tickets. I searched for distant destinations, places where no one knew me, where I could start over, where Eleanor Vance could be someone different, someone free. I found a coastal town 1,000 miles from here, a small place, quiet, with cheap houses, with an ocean view, with that sea I always wanted to know. The ticket cost $120, one way only. I saved that information. I didn't buy it yet, but I knew soon I would. Meanwhile, I kept pretending. I kept being the same Eleanor as always when Sarah or Jason called, which was rare, very rare. 2 weeks passed without hearing from them. Not a call, not a text, nothing. As if I didn't exist. As if I had died and no one had noticed. But I was fine. For the first time in a long time, I was fine being alone, because I knew that loneliness was temporary, because I knew I was doing something, that I was taking control, that I was building something new. Maggie came to visit me often. We drank coffee. We talked. She told me about her grandkids, about her life. I told her about my plans. She supported me. She told me I was doing the right thing, that I deserved to be happy, that I deserved to live for myself. One day she told me something that stuck with me. Eleanor, you gave 50 years of your life for them. Now it's time for you to give yourself at least 10 years for you, before it's too late. And she was right. I was 70 years old. If I was lucky, I had 10 or 15 years left, and I wanted to live them. Really live them. Not just exist hoping my children remembered I have a name. I signed the new papers with Michael, the new will, the bank documents, everything legal, everything in order. He gave me copies. He explained that now everything was protected, that I had done the right thing. He shook my hand when we said goodbye. He told me, "Take care of yourself, Mrs. Vance. You deserve the best." I left that office feeling light, as if a weight had been lifted off me, a weight of years, of decades, of a whole life carrying guilt that wasn't mine. That night I sat in front of the computer. I bought the ticket, bus ticket, one way only. Destination, Serenity Cove, a town I didn't even know, but that would soon be my home. Departure date, in 2 months. Enough time to organize everything, to tie up loose ends, to say goodbye to this life without making noise. The ticket was kept in the drawer of my nightstand. I looked at it every night before sleeping. It was my reminder, my promise, my hope. In 2 months I would leave here. In 2 months I would be free. But before leaving, I needed to do something. I needed them to know. I needed them to understand what they had done, not for revenge, not for hate, but for dignity, for self-respect, for all the mothers who stay silent and endure until they can't anymore. I told Maggie my plan. She looked at me with those wise eyes she has. She asked if I was sure. I told her yes. She asked if I wouldn't regret it later. I told her the only thing I regretted was taking so long. Maggie helped me plan everything. We decided I would host a dinner, one last dinner. I would invite Sarah and Jason. I would tell them I had something important to announce. They would come. Of course they would come. They would think I was going to give them something. Money. The house. Something. They always thought I was going to give them something. But this time would be different. This time it would be me who would take. I would take my life back. I would take my dignity back. I would take my name back. We set the date. Saturday. In 3 weeks. Enough time to prepare everything. Enough time to make sure I wouldn't back down. I called Sarah first. She answered on the 4th ring. "Hi, Mom. What's up?" Her voice sounded distracted as always. I told her I wanted to have a family dinner, that it had been a long time since the 3 of us got together, that I had something important to tell them. There was a silence. Then she asked, "Is it something bad, Mom? Are you sick?" Her concern sounded fake, rehearsed. I told her no, that I wasn't sick, that I just wanted to see them, that I wanted to talk to them, that it was important. She accepted, said she would be there. I hung up and called Jason. The conversation was almost identical. He also accepted. He also asked if I was sick. He also sounded like he was doing something else while talking to me. But they confirmed. Both said they would come. I marked the date on the calendar. 3 weeks, 21 days, 504 hours. I started counting down. During those 3 weeks, I prepared everything meticulously. I made a list of what I had to tell them, of what I had to show them, of how the night was going to unfold. I rehearsed it in front of the mirror. I practiced my voice, my tone, my words. I wanted to be sure. I wanted to be firm. I also prepared the evidence. I printed the screenshots of their social media, the conversations where they made fun of me, the photos of their luxurious lives while they asked me for money, The receipts for all the money I had given them in the last 5 years. Everything organized, everything numbered, everything ready to show them. Michael prepared official documents for me. A letter where I declared that I was withdrawing all financial support from my children, that they would no longer receive a single cent more from me, that they had to fend for themselves, that they were adults and it was time they acted like it. Copies of the new will, copies of the changes to my bank accounts, everything legal, everything signed. I also prepared envelopes, 3 envelopes, one for Sarah, one for Jason, one for Maggie. In Maggie's envelope I put a thank you letter, and $500, the money she had lent me, plus a little extra, for her friendship, for her loyalty, for being the only person who treated me like a human being. In Sarah's envelope I put the keys to a safety deposit box. Inside that box were things from her father, photos, letters, keepsakes, things that maybe mattered to her, maybe not. But it was the only thing she was going to inherit from me while I was alive. In Jason's envelope I put the same, keys to another safety deposit box, with things from his father, with memories of his childhood, material things they could keep, because I didn't need them anymore, because where I was going there was no room for the past. The days passed slowly. Every day I felt more nervous, more anxious, but also more sure, more convinced. There were moments when I doubted, moments when I thought maybe I was being too hard, too cruel. But then I remembered. I remembered Mother's Day. I remembered the lies. I remembered how they called me the old lady, and the doubt disappeared. Maggie came every day. She helped me with the preparations. She listened to me rehearse. She told me I was doing it right, that I was being strong, that I was being brave. Her support was the only thing keeping me steady. A week before the dinner, I received a call from Jason. He needed money again, $500. To fix the car. He said it had broken down, that he needed the car for work, that if he didn't fix it he was going to lose his job. The same old story, the same script. I told him I didn't have it, to wait until after the dinner, that we would talk then. He got upset, said he couldn't wait, that it was urgent. I repeated that I didn't have it. He hung up angry. 2 days later, I saw on his social media a photo of the new car, the same car I had seen him in with the young girl, running perfectly, without any problem. Lies. Always lies. They didn't even make an effort to make the lies believable anymore. The day of the dinner arrived. Saturday. I got up early. I cleaned the whole house. Not because they deserved it, but because I deserved it. Because I wanted my last dinner in this house, as Sarah and Jason's mother, to be dignified. I wanted everything to be perfect. I cooked all day. I made their favorite dishes from when they were kids: roast chicken, mashed potatoes, fresh salad, homemade bread, chocolate dessert. I didn't do it to please them. I did it to remind them, so they would know exactly what they were losing. I set the table with the best I had, the good plates, the silverware I had inherited from my mother, the crystal glasses, the embroidered tablecloths, everything. The table looked beautiful, dignified, like a Last Supper should look. At 6 in the evening everything was ready. The food, the table, the envelopes, the documents, me. I showered. I put on my best dress, a black one, simple but elegant. I did my hair. I put on a little makeup. I looked in the mirror. I saw a different woman, a woman who was no longer afraid, a woman ready to tell the truth. They arrived at 7, together, in Jason's car. I saw them arrive through the window. They came laughing, talking. They got out of the car and walked toward the house like it was nothing, as if this were just another dinner, as if I were the same as always. I opened the door before they knocked. I received them with a smile, a calm smile, firm. "Come in," I told them. "I was waiting for you." They entered. Sarah gave me a kiss on the cheek, one of those quick kisses. Without feeling, Jason hugged me, a brief hug, mechanical. They sat in the living room. They looked around. Sarah commented that the house looked good. Jason asked what I had cooked. I offered them something to drink. They accepted. I served them wine, a cheap wine I had bought especially for this occasion. I wasn't going to waste the good wine on them. We talked about unimportant things. The weather, traffic, their jobs, superficial conversation. Empty. Like always. I listened to them, nodded, smiled when necessary. But inside I was counting the minutes, waiting for the right moment. After half an hour, I told them dinner was ready. We went into the dining room. They sat down, looked at the table. Sarah said everything looked delicious. Jason asked if it was some special occasion. I told them yes, that it was very special. But that I would explain after dinner. We ate. They talked amongst themselves. I almost didn't speak. I just watched them, studied them. I tried to find something in them that would make me doubt. Something that would make me change my mind. Something of the children they were, something of true love. But I found nothing. I just saw two selfish adults eating at my table, enjoying my food, waiting to see what they could get out of me this time. We finished dinner. I cleared the plates. Sarah offered to help. I told her it wasn't necessary, that she should stay seated, that I'd be right back. I went to the kitchen. I took a deep breath. This was the moment. There was no turning back. I went back to the dining room with a tray. On the tray were the 3 envelopes, the documents, the evidence, everything. I put it in the center of the table. They looked at the tray with curiosity, with expectation, probably thinking there was money there, or deeds, or something they could take. I sat down. I looked them in the eyes. First, Sarah, then Jason, and I started to speak. My voice sounded firmer than I expected, clearer, stronger. I told them I had called them because I had something important to tell them, something I had been keeping for a long time, something I could no longer keep silent. They nodded, waiting, still not understanding. I told them I knew everything, that I knew about their lies, that I knew how they talked about me, that I knew they called me the old lady, that I knew they made fun of me while I gave them my last cent, that I knew their emergencies were lies, that their urgent debts were fabrications, that everything was fake. Their faces changed. Sarah's smile disappeared. Jason's eyes widened. They tried to speak, tried to interrupt. I raised my hand. No, I told them. Now it's my turn to speak. You already had years to speak, years to lie. Now you listen to me. I took out the first envelope, the one containing the screenshots. I put them one by one on the table, in front of them, so they could see them, so they couldn't deny. There were their conversations, their mockery, their plans to get money out of me, everything printed, everything real, everything undeniable. Sarah went pale. Jason stayed motionless. He looked at the papers as if he couldn't believe what he was seeing, as if he couldn't believe I had discovered their secret. Mom, Sarah started to say. I didn't mean, I interrupted her. I don't care what you meant. I care about what you said, and what you said was enough. Jason tried to justify himself. Mom, that was months ago. We were joking. We didn't mean it. I looked him directly in the eyes. Don't lie to me anymore, Jason. Don't disrespect me by continuing to lie to me in my own house. Those conversations are from 2 weeks ago, and you weren't joking. You were saying what you really think of me. I took out more papers. The receipts. The whole list of money I had given them in 5 years. $12,000 in total. I put it in front of them. $12,000, I told them. That's what I gave you in 5 years. Money you asked for emergencies, for urgent debts, to survive. Or so you told me. Then I took out the photos from their social media. Sarah in expensive restaurants, Jason with his new car, both on trips, both with brand-name clothes, both living lives they clearly could afford, while they told me they were broke, while they asked me for money I didn't have. This is what you did with my money, I told them, while I ate rice and beans to save, while I stopped buying my medicine to give to you, while I broke myself so you would be comfortable. You spent my sacrifice on luxuries, on whims, on things you didn't need. Sarah tried to speak. Mom, let me explain. There's nothing to explain, I told her. The numbers don't lie. The photos don't lie. Your own words don't lie. The only ones lying here are you two. And you've done it for years. Jason got up from the chair. This is ridiculous. Mom, you're exaggerating. You're attacking us over private conversations. We all say things we don't mean when we're with friends. I watched him get up. I didn't move. He didn't intimidate me. Sit down, Jason. I haven't finished. Something in my voice made him obey. He sat down. Sarah had tears in her eyes. Fake tears. Tears of shame at having been discovered, not tears of real regret. I knew the difference. I told them about Mother's Day. I told them exactly how I felt. I told them I confirmed with them the day before, that they told me they would come, that I prepared everything, that I waited, that I cried all afternoon in that empty living room while you were at a party, while you had fun, while I didn't matter to you at all. Sarah sobbed. Mom, I'm sorry. It was a mistake. We should have come. A mistake, I repeated. A mistake is forgetting to buy milk. A mistake is arriving late. What you did wasn't a mistake. It was a choice. You chose a party over your mother. You chose your friends over me. And then you had the nerve to come that same night to ask me for money. Jason had his head down. He wouldn't look at me. He knew he had no defense. He knew everything I was saying was true. I told them that night when they arrived asking for $3,000 was when something changed in me, when I understood that it was never going to be enough, that I was never going to be important to you, that I was just a source of resources. I took out the documents Michael had prepared, the new will, the bank changes, everything. This is what I came to tell you tonight, I told them. This is the important announcement I had. I showed them the will. I explained that I had changed everything, that they were no longer going to inherit automatically, that I had decided what to do with my things, with my money, with my life. Sarah stopped crying. She looked at me with wide eyes. What does that mean, Mom? It means I took control, I replied. It means you're not going to manipulate me anymore, that you're not going to lie to me anymore, that you're not getting another cent out of me, that it's over. Jason stood up again. This is crazy. You can't do that. We're your children. We have rights. I looked at him coldly. You have rights to nothing. I worked for every cent I have. I broke my back to give you everything, and you paid me with lies and disdain. So yes, I can do this. And I already did. I showed them the bank papers. I explained that I had opened a new account, that most of my money was there, that they didn't have access, that they would never have access, that what I decided to do with that money was my business, not theirs. Sarah stood up. Her face changed. The sadness turned into rage. This is what that snake Maggie told you, right? She put these ideas in your head. She's manipulating you. I looked at her with pity. Maggie is the only person who has treated me with dignity in years, the only one who listens to me, the only one who worries about me as a person and not as an ATM. So don't you dare speak ill of her. Jason started pacing in circles. This can't be happening. This can't be real. We've always loved you, Mom. We've always been there for you. I laughed. A dry laugh. Humorless. You've been there for me. Where have you been, Jason? Where were you on Mother's Day? Where were you on my birthday? Where were you when I was sick last year? Where were you when I needed you? He didn't answer. He couldn't answer. Because the truth was, they were never there. They only appeared when they needed something. They only called me when they wanted money. The rest of the time I didn't exist to them. I gave them the envelopes with their names. These are for you, I told them. Open them if you want, or don't open them. I don't care anymore. Sarah opened hers with trembling hands. She took out the keys, looked at the paper explaining what they were, a safety deposit box with things from her father. Nothing more. This is all? She asked. Her voice sounded incredulous. That is all, I confirmed. Jason didn't even open his. He left it on the table. The three of us looked at each other in silence. A heavy silence, full of truths that hurt, full of years of mistakes, full of a relationship that had broken a long time ago and that I was just now admitting. Sarah tried one last resort. Mom, please. We can fix this. We can change. We can be better children. Give me a chance. I shook my head. You had years of chances. Every Mother's Day I spent alone was a chance to change. Every time I gave you money I didn't have was a chance to be grateful. Every time I forgave you was a chance to be different. There are no more chances left. Jason approached me. He grabbed my shoulders. Mom, this is a mistake. You're angry. I understand. But don't make decisions you're going to regret. We're your family. We're all you have. I removed his hands from my shoulders. Exactly, Jason. You are all I have. And that is very sad. Because what I have is nothing. 2 children who don't love me, who only use me, who only remember I exist when they need something. I told them to leave. That dinner was over. That I had already told them everything I had to say. That there was nothing more to talk about. Sarah started crying again. This time maybe they were real tears. Tears of realizing what they had lost. Or maybe just tears of rage. I didn't care anymore. Jason stood there, looking at me as if I were a stranger. And maybe I was. Maybe he never really knew me. Maybe he never bothered to know me. To him, I was always just Mom. The person who gives. The person who solves. The person who is there. Never Eleanor. Never a person with feelings. With dreams. With dignity. I walked toward the door. I opened it. I waited for them there. Go, I told them. And this time my voice didn't shake. This time I didn't feel guilt. This time I only felt peace. A strange peace. The peace of having told the truth. The peace of having defended myself. The peace of having chosen my dignity over their comfort. Sarah passed first, crying, without looking at me. Jason followed her. He stopped at the door. This isn't going to end like this, Mom. We're going to talk when you're calmer. There won't be any more conversations, I told him. This is final. Go. He left. I watched them walk to the car. I saw them get in. I saw Jason hit the steering wheel with rage. I saw Sarah wipe her tears. I saw the car start. I saw the taillights move away down the street. And when they completely disappeared, I closed the door. I stood there, in the entryway, alone, in silence. I expected to feel something. Sadness, regret, fear. But I didn't feel any of that. I only felt relief. A deep relief. Like when you take off a shoe that has been hurting you all day. Like when you let go of a weight you've carried so long you forgot what it feels like to be without it. I went back to the dining room, looked at the table, the dirty dishes, the scattered papers, the open envelopes, the whole mess of the truth. I started to clean up. I washed the dishes. I put away the food. I wiped the table. And with everything I put away, I felt I was also putting away a piece of the past, a piece of the old Eleanor, the one who endured, the one who stayed silent, the one who settled for crumbs. That Eleanor was staying here, in this house, in this life, because in 2 months the new Eleanor would get on a bus and never look back. The days after that dinner were strange, silent. I expected them to call me, to look for me, to try to fix things, but they didn't. A week passed, then 2. Not a call, not a text, nothing. It was as if I had ceased to exist for them. At first it hurt, I'm not going to lie. It hurt to realize that even after everything, even after having shown them the truth, I didn't matter enough for them to try to win me back. But then I understood something. Their silence was the confirmation I needed. The final proof that I had made the right decision. Maggie came every day. She brought me company. She helped me pack. Because yes, I had started packing, little by little, 1 box at a time. Clothes I was going to take, books, old photographs, not many things, only the essentials. Because where I was going, I didn't need the past. I only needed enough to start over. I hired a real estate attorney. I put the house up for sale. The house where I had lived 42 years. The house where I raised my children. The house where my husband died. The house full of memories, some good, most painful. It was time to let it go. The lawyer told me I could get a good price, $120,000. It was an old house, but in a good neighborhood. There were interested buyers. He told me that in a month I could close the sale. Perfect, I told him. Just in time. I didn't tell Sarah or Jason I was selling the house. I didn't owe them explanations. This house was mine. It was in my name. I had paid for it with my work, with the money from Arthur's insurance, and with my own savings during all these years. They had no right over it while I was alive. I started giving things away. Old furniture, appliances I didn't need anymore. I gave them to the neighbors, to the people in the neighborhood who had always been kind to me, people who greeted me on the street, who asked how I was, people who treated me with more respect than my own children. Mrs. Eva from the corner took the dining room table, the same table where I just had that dinner with Sarah and Jason. She was so happy. She hugged me. She thanked me 1,000 times. She told me she would take great care of it, and I knew it was in better hands than if I had left it to my children. Mr. Faustino from the building next door took the sofa. The television I gave to Gloria, the lady who sold flowers on the corner. Everything that left the house made me feel lighter, as if I were casting off lines, preparing to float. One afternoon, 3 weeks after the dinner, there was a knock at my door. It was Sarah. Alone. She came with a serious face, as if she had rehearsed what she was going to say. I let her in, not because I had forgiven her, but because I was curious to see what she wanted. She sat in one of the few chairs left, looked around, noticed things were missing. "Where is the sofa?" she asked. "I gave it away," I replied. Her face fell. "You gave it away? But that sofa was family." "Yes," I said. "It was my family with your father. Not your family. Now it belongs to someone who will appreciate it." Sarah took a deep breath. "Mom, I came to talk, to try to fix things. I came to apologize." I looked at her without expression. "Go ahead," I told her. "I'm listening." She started to speak. She told me she had been thinking, that she had realized they had acted wrongly, that she regretted treating me like that she wanted a second chance. I listened to everything. When she finished, I asked her, "And Jason realized it too? Does he want to apologize too?" She lowered her gaze. "He's a little more resistant. He says you exaggerated. He says you were too harsh. But I don't think the same. I think you're right to be upset." "A little more resistant," I repeated, meaning he didn't come because he really doesn't care. Only you came. And you came because you're worried about losing the inheritance, not because you really care about me. Sarah shook her head. "No, Mom, it's not for that. It's because I love you, because you're my mother, because I don't want to lose you." I got up, walked toward the window, looked at the street. "You don't want to lose me," I said. "But you lost me years ago, Sarah. When you decided your parties were more important than me, when you decided that lying to me was okay, when you decided that calling me the old lady with your brother was acceptable, you lost me in every moment you chose not to value me. But we can make up for lost time," she said. Her voice sounded desperate now. "We can start over. I can be better. I can visit you more. I can call you more often. We can have lunch together. Whatever you want." I turned around, looked at her. "It's already too late for that," I told her then. I told her I had sold the house, that I was leaving, that I had bought a bus ticket to a place where she wouldn't know how to find me, that I was going to start a new life. A life where Eleanor Vance wasn't just someone's mother, where she was simply Eleanor. Her face went pale. "You're leaving? Where? When? For how long?" Those were the wrong questions. The right questions would have been, "Why are you leaving? What did we do to drive you to this point? How can we make you stay?" But she didn't ask them, because deep down she only cared to know where her inheritance would be. "I'm not going to tell you where," I replied, "nor when exactly. And I'm not going for a while. I'm going forever." Sarah stood up. "Mom, this is crazy. You can't leave like this. What are people going to say? What are we going to say when they ask about you?" There it was. Her true concern. What will people say? They can say whatever they want, I told her. They can say I died. They can say I went crazy. They can say whatever makes them feel better. It's not my problem anymore. You two stopped being my problem. She started to cry. Real tears this time, or at least they seemed real. But they didn't move me anymore. I had already cried enough for both of us. "You can't do this to us," she said between sobs. "We're your children. We need you." "You don't need me," I replied. "You need my money. You need the security of having an inheritance waiting for you. You need to be able to say you have a mother when it suits you. But me, the person I am, you have never needed me." She tried to hug me. I took a step back. "No, Sarah, not anymore. No more fake hugs. No more empty words. It's all over. I want you to leave. And when you close that door, understand that you are closing it forever. The next time you come here, if you come, This house will no longer be mine, and I won't be here. She stood there, looking at me as if she didn't recognize me, and she was right not to recognize me, because I didn't recognize myself either. This new Eleanor was someone she had never been before, someone who defended herself, someone who said no, someone who chose her own happiness over guilt. Sarah walked toward the door. She stopped, turned around. "If you change your mind," she said, "if you decide to stay, if you decide to give us another chance, call me, please." "I won't change my mind," I told her. "This is my final decision, and it is the best decision I have made in my whole life." She left, closed the door slowly, as if closing it slowly could make it hurt less. I stood there, waiting to feel something. Guilt, sadness, regret. But I only felt more peace, more clarity, more certainty that I was doing the right thing. That night Maggie came to dinner. I told her about Sarah's visit, about what she had told me, about how she had left. Maggie listened while we ate the soup I had prepared. When I finished speaking, she just said, "I'm proud of you, Eleanor. Very proud." Those words touched my soul, because no one had told me that in years. No one had been proud of me. My children never were. Arthur maybe was, but he never said it out loud. Maggie was the first person in decades who made me feel I was doing something right, something brave, something important. I gave her the envelope with her name. She opened it, saw the money, tried to return it. "No, Eleanor, this is too much. I don't need it. I lent it to you from my heart," I insisted. "Maggie, you have been more family to me in these last months than my children in years. Please, accept it. Not just as payment, but as thanks for seeing me, for listening to me, for treating me like a person." She finally accepted. She hugged me, a real hug, of those that mean something, of those that make you feel you are not alone in the world. We cried together, but they weren't sad tears. They were tears of liberation, of friendship, of two older women who understood each other without needing explanations. The following days were a whirlwind. The house buyer accelerated the process. He wanted to close in 2 weeks. "Perfect," I told him. "The faster the better." I signed papers, documents, transfers, everything legal, everything necessary, so that when I left, there were no loose ends. Michael helped me with everything. He made sure the money from the sale went to my new account. The account my children didn't know about, $120,000. It was more money than I had had in my entire life. And it was all mine, to do whatever I wanted. I took out only what I needed in cash, $5,000. The rest I left in the bank, secure, protected, for my new life, for emergencies, for whatever. But no one else but me would have access. No one else but me would decide what to do with it. 1 week before leaving, I received a text from Jason. It was the first time I heard from him since the dinner. The message said, "Mom, Sarah told me you're leaving. I don't know if it's true, but if it is, please reconsider. Don't do something crazy. Think of us. Think of the family." I didn't answer. There was nothing to say. I deleted the message, blocked his number. I did the same with Sarah's number. I didn't want their texts anymore. I didn't want their calls anymore. I didn't want anything from them anymore. The day of the move, people from a company arrived. They took the few boxes I had prepared. I sent them by courier to Serenity Cove, to a small hotel where I would stay the first few weeks while I looked for a permanent place. Everything was organized. Everything was planned. Everything was ready. The house was left empty, completely empty. I walked through the rooms one last time. The room where I slept with Arthur. The room where Sarah and Jason grew up. The kitchen where I prepared thousands of meals. The living room where I cried on that Mother's Day that changed everything. I said goodbye to each space, not with nostalgia, but with acceptance. This house held my past, but I was going toward my future. And the future didn't need these walls, didn't need these memories, only needed a 70-year-old woman with a bus ticket and a small suitcase. I closed the door for the last time, gave the keys to the lawyer, signed the last paper. And just like that, the house stopped being mine. 42 years of history closed with a signature and a handshake. And I didn't cry. I didn't look back. I just walked forward. Maggie took me to her house that last night. I slept on her sofa. We talked late. About life. About dreams. about the sea I was about to know. She told me to visit her when I could. I promised I would. And it was a promise I did intend to keep. The day of my departure dawned with a clear sky, as if the universe knew I needed a good day to start my new life. I got up early. Maggie had already made coffee. We had breakfast together in silence. A comfortable silence. The kind that only exists between true friends. My bus left at 10 in the morning. Maggie took me to the station. I carried my only suitcase. A small suitcase with the essentials. Clothes, documents, some old photographs. Not of my children. Those I left behind. Only photos of Arthur. Of my parents. Of moments worth remembering. We arrived at the station an hour early. We sat on a bench, holding hands, like two sisters saying goodbye. Maggie had moist eyes. "Eleanor," she told me, "you're going to be okay. I know you're going to be okay. You're going to find the peace you deserve." "I know," I replied, and for the first time in a long time, I really believed it. Then something happened I didn't expect. While we were sitting there, I saw someone familiar. It was Sarah. She was walking fast toward me. Jason was coming behind her. My heart accelerated. How had they found me? How did they know? They arrived in front of me. Sarah was agitated. "Mom, thank God we found you." Jason was looking at my suitcase, my ticket in my hand. The reality that I was finally leaving, becoming real for them. Maggie stood up. She placed herself between them and me, as if protecting me. "What are you doing here?" she asked them. Sarah ignored her. "Mom, you can't leave like this. Please, we have to talk." Jason nodded. "This is crazy. You're our mother. You can't just disappear." I looked at them. Calm. Calmer than I thought I would be. "How did you know I would be here?" I asked. Sarah hesitated. Then she spoke. "I called Maggie. I begged her to tell me. I told her we needed to say goodbye to you, that we needed to talk one last time." I looked at Maggie. She shook her head. "I'm sorry, Eleanor," she called, crying. She said she just wanted to say goodbye. I thought maybe it would be good, that maybe you needed that closure. I wasn't angry with Maggie. I understood why she did it. She had a good heart. She thought she was doing the right thing. "It's okay," I told her. "It's fine." I stood up, faced my children. "You have 5 minutes," I told them. "Say what you came to say." Jason spoke first. "Mom, you sold the house. Our house. The house where we grew up. Without even telling us. Without asking us. How could you?" I looked directly at him. "That house was mine, Jason. Not yours. Not Sarah's. Mine. I paid for it. I lived in it. I decided what to do with it. You have no right over it." "But it's our inheritance," Sarah said. "It's what you were going to leave us. It's our future." "Your inheritance," I repeated. "Your future. Interesting that you only think about what you're going to receive when I die. Never about what you could give me while I'm alive. Never about how you could make my last years good. Only about what you're going to inherit." "It's not like that," Jason said. "Of course we think about you. Of course we care about you." I laughed. A bitter laugh. "If you cared, you wouldn't be here claiming the house. You would be asking me why I'm leaving. Asking me if I'm okay. Asking me what I need. But no. You only care about the money, like always." Sarah started crying again. "Mom, please." "Don't leave hating us. Don't leave like this. We can change. I swear. We can be better. Give me a chance. Give me time to prove to you that I can be the daughter you deserve." I looked at her. "You had 50 years to be that daughter, Sarah. 50 years. I don't have time to wait anymore." I took 2 envelopes out of my purse. The last 2 envelopes I had prepared. I gave them to them, 1 for each. "This is the last thing you will receive from me," I told them. "Open them when I leave. Not now. When I leave." Sarah took her envelope with trembling hands. Jason put his in his pocket without looking at it. "What's inside?" Jason asked. "A letter," I replied. "Telling you everything I couldn't say in all these years. Everything I stayed silent about. Everything I endured. Everything you deserved to hear a long time ago. And also something else. Something you need to know." Sarah opened her envelope, even though I told her to wait. She took out the letter, started reading. Her face changed, paled, looked at Jason. Jason, you have to read this. He took out his envelope. Read too. Both looked at me with an expression of shock. In those letters I had written the complete truth. I told them about every sacrifice, every time I ate less so they could eat more, every time I stopped buying my medicine to pay for their school, every time I worked sick so they would have new clothes. I gave them numbers, dates, details they never knew or chose to ignore. I also told them about the money. I told them exactly how much I had received for the sale of the house, $120,000. I told them that of that money they wouldn't see a cent while I was alive, that I would use it to live my last years how I wanted, without asking anyone for permission, without feeling guilty. I explained that I had changed my will, that when I died, whatever little was left would be divided like this: 50% for Maggie, for being the only person who treated me with dignity, 25% for a charity that helps abandoned elderly women, and 25% divided between the two of them, if they were still alive to receive it. This can't be legal, Jason said. There has to be some law that protects the children. That gives us a right to the inheritance. I looked at him with pity. It's completely legal, Jason. Michael made sure of that. I have every right to do what I want with my money, with my property, with my life. And this is what I chose to do. Sarah was still crying. But Mom, you don't need to leave. Stay. You live near us. We can take care of you. We can be more present. Please. I already bought the ticket, I said. I already closed the sale. I already said goodbye. There is no turning back. This is final. They announced my bus. Departure to Serenity Cove. Gate number 6. Last call. It was my signal. My moment. I took my suitcase. Maggie hugged me tight. Take care of yourself, she whispered in my ear. Write me when you arrive. Call me when you can. And above all, be happy. You deserve it, I promised her. I turned to leave. Sarah grabbed my arm. Mom, wait, please. Just tell me one thing. Do you hate us? I stopped, looked her in the eyes. I don't hate you, I told her. But I don't love you enough to keep sacrificing myself for you either. And that is the difference. Love has to be mutual. It has to be reciprocal. And ours never was. Jason stepped forward. So, what are we now? What are we to you? Nothing, I replied, and the word sounded harsher than I intended. But it was the truth. You are nothing to me, because I was always nothing to you. Just a source of resources, just an obligation, just someone who was there because she had to be. Now I don't have to be, and I chose not to be. I walked toward the boarding gate. They followed me a few steps, then stopped, as if finally understanding there was nothing else to do, nothing else to say, that this was real, that their mother was really leaving, and that they had caused it. I showed my ticket. The driver checked my suitcase, indicated for me to get on. I went up the bus steps, found my seat. It was by the window. I sat down, looked outside. Maggie was there, smiling at me, waving goodbye. Sarah and Jason were behind her, motionless, watching as the bus prepared to leave. The engine started. The bus began to move, slow at first, then faster. I saw Maggie becoming smaller. I saw my children standing there, without moving, probably processing what had just happened, processing that their mother had left them, that their source of money was gone, that they would no longer have anyone to turn to when they needed something. The bus left the station, took the highway. The city began to disappear behind me. The streets I knew, the familiar buildings, the neighborhood where I lived all my life, everything was being left behind. And with every mile we advanced, I felt I breathed better, that my chest expanded, that my heart beat calmer. I leaned back in the seat, closed my eyes. I thought about everything I had left, the house, the memories, my children, my whole life. I thought about everything I had gained, freedom, dignity, the opportunity to be myself, to live for me, to know the sea. I opened my eyes, looked out the window. The landscape changed. It wasn't buildings anymore. It was fields, trees, mountains in the distance, beauty I had never stopped to appreciate, because I was always too busy, too tired, too worried about others. An older lady was sitting across the aisle. She smiled at me. "Traveling alone?" she asked. I nodded. "Yes, I'm going alone. To start a new life." She smiled wider. "How brave," she said. "At our age, there are still those who dare to start over." "I congratulate you," I thanked her. And I realized that yes, I was brave. That, leaving everything known to seek something better, required courage. And I had it. The bus continued its way. Hours passed. We stopped in some cities. People got on. People got off. I stayed in my seat, watching the world go by, feeling every mile like a liberation, like one more step toward the woman I should have always been. I thought about Sarah and Jason. I wondered if they would be okay, if they would understand someday, if they would regret it. But then I stopped wondering, because it wasn't my responsibility anymore. It wasn't my burden anymore. They were adults. They had made their decisions, and I had made mine. I took out a new notebook I had bought, opened the first page. I wrote, "My name is Eleanor Vance. I am 70 years old, and today I start living. For the first time in my life, I start living for me." The bus arrived in Serenity Cove at dawn the next day. I had traveled all night. I had barely slept, not from discomfort, but from excitement, from anticipation. For the first time in decades, I felt something akin to hope, to the hope that something good was coming. I got off the bus with my suitcase. The air smelled different, smelled of salt, of sea, of something new. The station was small, clean, quiet, nothing like the chaos of the city I had left behind. I took a taxi, gave the address of the hotel, a simple place I had reserved online with Maggie's help. The taxi drove through narrow streets, low houses painted in light colors, people walking slowly, without rush, without the stress that was breathed in the city. We passed by the boardwalk, and there I saw it, the ocean, immense, shining under the morning sun. I was breathless. I had never seen the ocean. 70 years of life, and I had never seen the ocean. It was always a distant dream, something other people did, something I never had time or money for. But now I had it in front of me, real, beautiful, waiting for me. The hotel was small but cozy. The owner was named Doris, a woman of about 60, kind, with an easy smile. She received me as if she had known me forever. "Welcome to Serenity Cove," she told me. "You're going to be very happy here." I felt it. My room faced directly to the sea. I opened the window. The breeze entered fresh, salty, full of possibilities. I sat on the bed. I looked at that infinite horizon, and I cried. But not from sadness, from relief, from gratitude, for having arrived, for having had the courage to arrive. I unpacked my few things. I took a shower, put on clean clothes, went down to breakfast. Doris served me coffee and freshly made bread. We talked. I told her I came to start over, that I was looking for a permanent place to live. She told me she knew some options, small cottages, cheap, with an ocean view. After breakfast, I went out to walk. I walked along the boardwalk, slowly, without hurry, looking at everything, the sea, the seagulls, the fishermen, the local people. Everything was so different, so calm, so far from the life I knew. I sat on a bench facing the sea, closed my eyes, listened to the waves, the most beautiful sound I had heard in my life, a sound that filled me with peace, that told me I had done the right thing, that I deserved to be here, that I deserved this new opportunity. A woman sat next to me. She was older than me, maybe about 80. She wore a big hat, dark glasses. "Good morning," she said. "Good morning," I replied. "Beautiful day," she commented. "Every day is beautiful here." I smiled at her. "It's my first day in Serenity Cove." She nodded. "I know. It shows on your face, that face of someone who just discovered something wonderful." She told me her name was Grace Reynolds, that she had lived there for 20 years, that she had also arrived fleeing from something, from a life she could no longer stand, from people who hurt her, that it had been the best decision of her life. I felt identified. We talked for hours. She told me about the town, about the people, about the nice places, about how life was there, quiet, simple, without the complications of the city. She told me there was a community of older women, women who, like us, had arrived seeking peace, seeking to start over. She invited me to a group that met on Tuesdays, a reading group, knitting, conversation, friendship. I accepted without hesitation. For the first time in years, I wanted to socialize. I wanted to meet people. I wanted to make friends, because now I had time. I had energy. I had the desire to live. The following days were of exploration. Doris took me to see several cottages. I saw 5, 6, 7, until I found the perfect one. A small house, 1 story, 2 bedrooms, kitchen, living room, a little garden in front, and a terrace in the back with a direct view of the sea. It cost $50,000. I had it. I could pay for it. I made the offer that same day. The owner accepted. In 2 weeks, we closed the deal. I signed papers, transferred the money, and just like that, for the first time in my life, I bought a house that was only mine, not shared with a husband, not thinking of leaving it to my children, just mine, for me, to live as I wanted. I moved in a week later. I bought simple furniture, new, without history, without painful memories, a comfortable bed, a small sofa, a table to eat, looking at the sea, white curtains that let the light in. Everything clean, everything new, everything mine. I started a routine. I got up early, made coffee, sat on the terrace, watched the sunrise over the sea, something I never thought I would do. Then I walked on the beach, picked up shells, dipped my feet in the cold water. I felt alive in a way I had never felt. In the afternoons I read, books I always wanted to read but never had time. I wrote in my diary, things I thought, things I felt, things I wanted to remember. At night I cooked for myself, food I liked, without thinking of anyone else. Only me. I joined Grace's group. I met other women. Maggie, another Maggie, 72. Eva, 68. Ronald, the only man in the group, 75. All with similar stories. All had left something behind. Difficult families, painful marriages, ungrateful children, all seeking the same thing: peace, dignity, a second chance. We became friends fast. We met twice a week, sometimes more. We drank tea, knitted, talked, laughed, shared our stories without judgment, without pity, only with understanding, with that deep understanding that only comes from having lived the same thing. Months passed. I called my friend Maggie every week. I told her about my life, about my house, about the sea, about my new friends. She told me about the city, about the neighbors. She never mentioned Sarah or Jason, and I never asked. That chapter was closed. I didn't want to reopen it. One day, 6 months after my arrival, Maggie told me something. "Eleanor, your children have looked for me. Several times. They ask about you. They want to know where you are. They want to know if you're okay. I haven't told them anything, but I thought you should know." I thanked her. I told her to do what she thought was right, but that I wasn't ready to talk to them. Maybe I never would be ready. The truth is, I thought about them sometimes. Not much, but sometimes. I wondered if they had learned anything, if they had changed, if they regretted it. But then I remembered that wasn't my responsibility anymore, that I had done my part, that I had given them 50 years, and that now these years belonged to me. I turned 71 inches Serenity Cove. My friends threw me a party, small, intimate, with homemade cake and candles. They sang happy birthday, hugged me, told me they loved me, and I believed them, because their affection was real, not conditioned, not interested, just pure, true. Grace gave me a painting she had painted. It was the sea, my sea, the one I saw every morning from my terrace. I hung it in my living room, right in front of where I sat, to remind me every day how far I had come, how brave I had been, how much I had gained by choosing myself. One afternoon, I was sitting on my terrace, watching the sunset. The sky was painted orange and pink. The waves broke gently on the shore. I had a cup of tea in my hands. I was at peace, completely at peace. I thought about the Eleanor I was, the woman who got up at 5 in the morning to serve others, the woman who cried alone in an empty living room, the woman who settled for crumbs of affection, that Eleanor had stayed in that city, in that house, in that life. The Eleanor the First was different. She was a woman who had chosen herself, who had taken the reins of her own life, who had said enough, who had had the courage to start over when everyone thought it was already too late. I took out my diary, opened a blank page, and I wrote the words I had been keeping, the words I needed to say, the words that closed a chapter and opened another. My name is no longer theirs. I am no longer just Sarah and Jason's mother. I am no longer just Arthur's widow. I am no longer the woman who gives and gives until she has nothing. My name is Eleanor, simply Eleanor, a 7-1-year-old woman who lives by the sea, who has true friends, who wakes up happy, who sleeps in peace, who knew the taste of freedom, who learned that it is never too late to choose oneself. My story with them ended, but my story is just beginning, and this story is mine alone. No one can take it from me. No one can ruin it for me, because finally, I learned the most important lesson of all, that self-love is not selfishness, that taking care of yourself is not betrayal, that choosing your happiness is not cruelty. I closed the diary, looked at the sea. The waves continued their eternal rhythm, rising and falling, like life itself, like endings that are also beginnings, like goodbyes that are also welcomes. The sun finished setting. The stars began to appear, one by one, filling the dark sky with light. I sat there, breathing the salty air, listening to the sea, feeling complete. For the first time in 71 years, I felt complete. Not because someone completed me, but because finally I had found myself, the Eleanor, who was always there, waiting, awaiting her moment, her opportunity, her time, and that time had arrived. My story was just beginning, and it would be a beautiful story. A story of freedom, of dignity, of a woman who refused to end her life as a footnote in the story of others, a woman who wrote her own ending and her own beginning. I got up, went into my house facing the sea, closed the door, smiled. Tomorrow would be another beautiful day, another day of my new life, another day of being simply Eleanor, and that was more than enough.